All right, all right, all right. We are live this Thursday morning. Here she is, the resplendent Pumelele Mashi. Oh, how you, Pums?
Hello, hello, hello.
The
Everyone in
idea
the
was,
comments is saying the robots must be out everywhere.
well, I mean, what are we on? It's stage 312. What stage of load shedding is it?
I don't care.
Yeah, yeah. What are you gonna do, right?
I don't care. Yesterday, and this is like, I hope everybody like remembers. Do not let them steal your joy. What's that line on *Handmaid's Tale*? Don't let the fuckers get you down.
Right. Yeah. That's
Don't
also,
let them steal your joy.
yeah, my favorite Rihanna song is also "Let the Jameson sink in. I'll drink to that." Yeah, you know. And she says,
Not Jameson,
"Don't
but
let the bastards get you down." Na, 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 na. What is that? You drinking Jameson already?
I wish it
Sure.
was Jameson, but it's like early morning. It's to kind of you know what it's like, right? It's a new
Mhm.
year, you're older, and you need like extra vitamins and stuff to get just
Yeah.
enough.
So it's one of those, like,
Multivitamin
e-
effervescent things.
that's good. That's good shit. That stuff works. I keep them in my cupboard at the office. Speaking of the office, I should have and would have been at the office this morning, but as it turns out, this is an incapability of mine this morning. So we'll have to do the show like this. We've got the burning platform, first one of the year, coming up a bit later on. Kanthan will be in, and we'll have Leeto, and we've got plenty to do this morning. And
It's
JJ
gonna be
Cornish.
very busy this morning.
Yes, indeed. So we've got lots to do, people to see, places to go, and everything else. But how's your new year going so far, Pums?
So I've been watching you this week, kind of, and I was laughing with Dory to say, so this whole week has been kind of getting back into the groove of the new
Yeah.
year. Well, we've been working since the second, um, or the third, whenever was the first working day. So
Third, yeah.
it's good. I'm in the like, and our second year at boarding, which was
Mm-hmm.
a lot calmer this year, getting there. It was not as exciting as it was last year, but it was good to be back, back in the back in the saddle. So I
Mm-hmm.
still don't have the running around of being a mom, which is still wonderful.
It's
And
fantastic.
yesterday, this is the thing that I'm telling you about. Don't let them get you down. Yesterday, I made a
Mm.
cake. It was like
Oh,
three
well,
hours of power, and I still made a cake because I
that's
felt
that's
like it.
fantastic. So
Because
listen,
I felt like it.
we do have a hangover from Christmas that we want you to deal with. So our listener, our listener and longtime fan Nikki, who runs a beautiful gift shop down in KZN, sent
It's
everybody on the team presents. And since you haven't opened yours yet, and you're the last one, we thought you'd do an unboxing live on the show this morning.
it's a
And
doesn't it need like a whole like camera thing? It's so beautiful. It's so
well,
pretty.
hold it up.
Like
Let's see.
I can't actually like look at this, Nikki. This is amazing.
Beautiful, huh? Yeah, yeah. She
It's
wraps.
oh,
So I mean, this is one of the cool things, and I always say when I opened
which
mine, I put it on Instagram, and I said we have the best listeners in the world, not just because they give us things. I mean, otherwise I'm like the ANC. Oh, we have the best supporters, but it's just because they're bribing us. This is because this is because they all Nikki runs this business, and actually, ironically, Rena, who's my business partner, has been to Nikki's shop and bought things there without knowing she was the Nikki who was sending us these
it's
gifts.
such a beautiful shop. It's such
Mm,
a beautiful shop. There's one around the corner from my house,
mm,
which and it has all of the kind of stuff that you want, right? So like um little gifts and like interesting stuff. Almost
absolutely.
interesting stuff. So not just like run of the mill big, oh, yo.
Right. So
And
here
she
it is.
wrote a really nice message.
Do you want to?
12
You want to?
shops. 12 shops she's got now, hey? So
Amazing.
in it exactly, this is the don't let them get you down, right? So she's opening new shops, and she is, and this is what happens, right? Is you gotta be, we can't be fearful. I think
Mm-mm.
we can't be
Agreed.
fearful and kind of. and like, yeah, complacent and let them. Bleh. Oh, it's so beautiful. And even last year, Nikki sent me a gift. It was so wonderful. I'd never received a gift from a listener before. And it was such a, it is still one of my favorite things. Um, Nikki's a really good listener to the show. So she knows I like entertaining. She knows I like making stuff. So last year I got a really great, like with an Africa print platter to, oh my gosh, professional use, it says. I don't know how
Ooh,
to say this word, guys.
what is it?
Yeah, you see, professional use, because I'm a professional.
Let's have a look. We want to see
Wait,
what's
wait,
going on
wait.
there.
Wait. I can't. Ryan is sleeping on the job. He needed to like give us a, like, you know how all the influencers have that camera
Yeah,
at the top of all the stuff that they're unboxing.
right.
Mm. Ooh, guys. So I am really unboxing it, and I'm trying hard not to break my nails.
Wow, this is actually happening in front of us.
It's all happening, kids. It's all happening. Oh
All
wow.
right.
Yes, believe it. Ah, more
Yeah.
entertaining. Can you see this? It's a Maxwell Williams.
Oh, very nice. It's like a dish
Very
that's
nice. It's a spoon rest so that when I'm making my cakes,
okay.
I
I
can
even
like,
know what it is. Even
oh
me as
man, these could have been my Christmas Day earrings.
uh well, you can use them for next year.
And then, oh wow. And this is the thing about what she has in her shop, right? This is, it's got a message. It's called, it says the
Peop
giving plate. Can you see that?
Oh, wow. In the complicated and troubled world in which we live, there is a simple joy to be found in what we give. On this plate is nothing super fancy or super fine, just a humble gift to your home from mine. It represents a blessing, a gesture of love and care, something tangible to show that we are always there. So please enjoy what's on this plate and then use it again. Let it remind you of love or inspire you to do the same. Isn't that lovely? Wow,
How
that's
amazing.
beautiful. That's really lovely.
Definitely inspiring. Definitely inspiring. And you see, it's like she's like got telepathy because this is like the best gift givers, right? Kind of
Mm,
they can kind of suss you out and know your personality and know the kind of things that are gonna, like, literally. Did I not arrive here and say I baked a cake just for the sheer joy of it?
that's true. Yeah.
And it would like completely fit on this plate. It's amazing. Nikki, you are amazing. And this is what open hearts do, right? It's just an
Well,
open heart.
again, it just
That's
reminds you,
why
you
she
know,
can grow her business.
because she's got this open heart.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
I mean, we've
mm.
all got to work on that, right? So have you been paying attention at all to the news over your holidays, or did you? Because you seem to me to be the kind of person who you're always up to date, always informed. Like I took a bit of a news sabbatical, I won't lie, and then getting back into it this week, I've been absorbing everything again. So I'm not out of touch now, but my God, Sunday I was.
How could we? How could we? It was like a very bloody busy December. It was
That
2 weeks.
was.
So I only stopped working on the 23rd or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And then had that week where you don't know if it's like morning or night or or
Right.
Monday or Wednesday or whatever. But that was also the week. That was the week with the conference. That was the week with the conference that never got finished. So it was also great that I wasn't at work because at 2 in the morning they were like putting out statements of how far all these poor journalists who like were working through the night because
Yeah.
at 2 in the morning, they were still counting votes. They were still counting who can and cannot emerge from the floor. It was crazy. And then, of course, there was the Mazelput uh, woo-ha. And what was really funny is watching here in South Africa, we've got a new New York Times correspondent that
Oh
was
yeah.
posted here, and he tweeted. He's the one that actually got the footage of what happened before the the social media video that we saw in Mazelport. He's the one that broke that footage. And he tweeted eventually, I think like on the 27th or something, that he actually took the job in South Africa because he heard that South Africa shuts down between like the 16th of December.
Oh, wow. He had this to deal with.
It is like this has been so busy. There's conferences, there's so much news happening. I also went to church. I went to church with I went to church in Mamelodi, and the ambassador from the Vatican, who's an archbishop, was
Oh.
was running the service, and that was very nice. Church on Christmas Day.
Speaking of that, the obvious thing that we haven't spoken about in the news this week, it hasn't come up yet, was old Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, who died
Passing.
and was
Mm,
buried on Thursday last week, and I saw bits and pieces of that funeral too. But I mean, that's a
mm.
big story. This guy made an enormous impact on the church and was, a really well respected leader and someone who I
In
think they feel.
Rhind.
Yeah.
Oh, someone's sending me a message that says it was Mabopane and not Mamelodi.
Oh, right. You're being corrected. I was going to say Mamelodi's
Yes.
here in Pretoria, right?
Yeah, but so is Mabopane. Where's Mabopane?
Mabopane is like a little bit north of that, isn't it? It's kind of on the way to like Hammanskraal and that sort of area.
It's all Pretoria on the other side of Midrand. The other
Everything.
side of Midrand.
Yeah, I mean, then Tembisa's sort of in the grey area between Pretoria and Joburg too, by your estimation.
Yeah, they're near Midrand.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, absolutely. So,
Which is
I mean,
always fascinating to drive by now because it's like mushroomed into. I remember when it was just a farm
mhm,
out there on the far side of Sandton.
yeah,
And now
there's
Joburg
no,
and Pretoria are merging into one,
there's no
quite
space.
literally.
There's actually, I don't think there's any room now on the highway where you're surrounded on both sides by just bush or felt. It used to be
Mm.
that there were gaps, there were dotted areas. This is interesting, and I love this from Ginger Winger, who says studies show that both the giver and receiver get huge serotonin boosts from gifts, proportional to how thoughtful it is and how much it is needed.
I
That's
can
it.
tell you that I've had a huge serotonin boost this morning because this was everything about it was so sensory and so much fun, right? So an amazing box, an amazing kind of wrapping and all of that
Mm.
stuff is also so much fun.
So we've got quite a lot to get into this morning. I mean, where do you want to even start? Because you mentioned these ANC conferences, but I have to say, like, I got back and I thought, okay, well, I thought they'd finished last year. Bloody fat
Oh,
chance of that.
but you would be wrong.
Yeah.
I am reading. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna hold it up for you just now. I did also get a chance to read in the week in between. Um, and I got into a cycle. Every time the load shedding would happen, that's when I'd take my nap. And so
Mm-hmm.
load shedding, you have
Right.
your nap, you
Sure.
wake up and eat, and
So
you're reading and drinking, and
that's one of the
this
uses of load shedding is to have a nap.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, lots to watch on TV.
Right.
Lots to watch on TV, and the phrase of the year last year, these gays are trying to murder me.
All right.
So big phrase because the White Lotus had season
Right.
2, and
That's where it comes from.
it was mad. It was absolutely mad. But you couldn't. That is the most perfect line on a TV show ever, ever. And every meme that's come out since then is a testament to how much that line was
Well,
amazing.
so I'm glad you brought up the White Lotus because, first of all, I saw Jennifer Coolidge win the award at the Golden Globes yesterday,
The
and
Golden Globe.
I didn't watch any of the Golden Globes, but I did see a clip on, I think it was Instagram, of her doing her acceptance speech, and it's hilarious. I mean, she's really funny. She's the weirdest That character that she plays in White Lotus is almost like her. She's so weird. Um,
And if you haven't watched the White Lotus, this is definitely a spoiler alert. I'm gonna miss her character.
yeah, because they killed her. Well, don't spoil it. It is a spoiler, but there we go. You did it, not me.
Tough. What
So,
kind of person? What kind of person has
well,
waited this long to watch the White
me,
Lotus?
I was only on episode 2, but okay, Pumi, thanks. Anyway, this this woman is hilarious, and what's so great about that character and about that show, and somebody told me the whole story. Apparently, the guy who's written it, Mike White, or yeah, I think
Ye-
his surname is White.
ye-
He was he's
Mr.
some kind of
Schneebly on School of Rock.
right. He's this really cool guy who he wrote this thing. He's got this amazing sort of life story, this backstory, and it really is the most beautifully written. Both the first one and the second season. People's opinions vary, but it's come up in I don't know 4 different discussions this week with people I've seen. So it's really popular. People have been watching it everywhere, and I love
Listen,
this Jennifer Coolidge,
it was.
Stifler's mom, just so great. Yeah,
Listen, Mr. Schneebly has done. Do you know he took his dad on The Amazing Race? He was on one of the seasons of The Amazing Race with his
really.
dad.
See, there are layers to this. There are layers to this guy.
So,
Yeah.
not like a
But
glass onion.
well done to him because he's the toast of the town at the moment in terms of creating that series, which everybody's watched. The other thing that everybody's talking about, obviously, which we discussed a little bit on Monday, and then I decided to draw a curtain around it for Tuesday and Wednesday, but Prince Harry's book is out. A lot of people are reading that at the moment, which is already, I think it's
Yes,
gone.
it was actually
It's
on
broken
one day
record.
only yesterday, guys.
Really? How much
Yeah.
is it selling for?
I actually am not
Hey,
interested.
look, you don't care. You're not
I
going to read it.
No, I mean, no. It's not appealing to me the way that it should, but I will tell you a very funny story because it's called Spare, for those of you who have missed every single news article in the past week.
Listen, it's
Uh,
selling for over 400 Rand on
yeah,
most of the
but
sites
it's a
that I can.
big book.
Jesus. Apparently, it's already broken records for being the best-selling book. No, obviously, this year is only a few days old, but across the world for like recently, just altogether, the number of books that we've seen reach this kind of success are very few. So, you know what? People are interested. You can't ignore
It
this.
so because it's called Spare, at dinner with Kanejo and Kumo over December, we were
Mhm.
talking about it and where the and where the phrase comes from, an
Yeah,
heir
and
and a spare.
yeah,
Kanejo was beyond horrified at the thought that like, the second born is just the spare. And
right,
even though Kanejo is my first child, he's his father's second child. And
right.
I found it very fascinating. So both Kumo and him are second children. And I found it very fascinating that for both of them, they thought, so I'm the spare.
Well, listen, this brings up the discussion of siblings rather than Harry, but in the book, in the little bits I've seen, and I've tried to stay on top of this because I do think people are interested, and you can't. This is the
Talking about the
story,
fisticuffs.
yeah, but just more generally, like this idea of sibling rivalry, which most people thought that these two boys who lost their mom, and that they were in this unique royal situation, and we all thought that they were huge supporters of each other and that they were always there for each other. That was the presentation we were given. And it turns out, according to Harry anyway, and whether his version is, you know, whether it's fair or whether it's not, that's the way he sees it. There's a lot of bitterness and resentment going on there. And he really does, if he titled the book Spare, and you never know because the publishers often are the ones who decide what the title should be and how it should be marketed. And, he's on the
Listen,
interview
though that is a provocative title. It gets the
very,
people going.
very. So the interesting thing here is to discuss whether or not these sibling rivalry things were, the major factor in his youth because that he had a father who, I must say, the little bits that I've read about Charles that he mentions in the book, and I by no means can be given um, any credit for getting the context of this yet. I will read it because I feel like you have to be able to talk
You
about
have
this.
to now. We have to
It's
now.
it's going to be the talk of every dinner table conversation anywhere for the next however long, whether you like it or not. So he and William definitely have a very complex relationship. It's not the standard two brothers, you know, both went through a very difficult childhood with a dad who was trying, but who's just by nature of the way he was raised quite distant. A mother who was no longer there, a public who were just always baying for blood in terms of attention and headlines and pictures, and he has an absolutely pathological hatred of the media, which I think,
Makes
I,
sense.
yeah, I would too. And only really, when I've read his own words in context, will I be able to comment on this with fairness and clarity. But it appears to me that this situation with him and William is by no means just these two brothers who support each other, who've been through a similar situation, and have all this media attention, and it's not, they're not the same kind of people.
So, of course, one of the things that I needed to catch up on last year was The Crown, which I love
Mm.
and can't believe I mean, they have so much material. They could go on forever. It could be like Santa Barbara or The Bold and the Beautiful. They
Yeah.
could go on forever.
And isn't it weird
Um,
how the crown has become almost like a
a reference.
preamble? No, but it's like a preamble now to what's happening in episode whatever of the final season that we're watching unravel live, right? It's like the real people who get to the final episode.
I love
And
that you're saying the final
oh,
season of The
yes.
Crown because everybody's talking about everything that I've read so far. Of course, it's so polarized. There are people saying that he's tearing down the
Yeah,
entire institution
right.
with his book and the 60 minutes interview and I'm just like I don't know if he's tearing it down. I think it's just it's the moving of the world is such that this it's ending, right? It's ending. This whole thing that
Mhm.
this entire institution, its time has come and gone.
Well,
And
for me,
it's just I think it's
people have called timeout on the monarchy for 1,000 years, and it's still there. So let's
it's
not
only
count.
the Russians really that just put them to the the Russians and the French. It's like
Let's
chop
not
off their
count them
heads.
out. Yeah, let's not count them out just yet, because look at the amount of fascination people have for this. And they only care because he's a prince. They only care because he grew up royal. And you know, it's amazing to me how people in America who back in 17 something or another, 1776, did everything they could to get rid of a royal family because they didn't want a king. And now most of the attention for this whole theater that's playing out in front of us is coming from America, and the American media, American public are
Yay!
obsessed
They
with the
love
royal,
it.
almost more than the Brits. You know,
They are absolute why do you think Fergie could just move there? They are completely obsessed.
no. Anyway, I mean, we're
But the
not going to
sibling
go into
rivalry thing is a thing. Look, the sibling rivalry thing is a thing, especially I think when the parents are just as complicated. I think it
mm,
like I say this all the time. Like parenting is like the most overrated experience because there's no manual, there's no nothing, nobody tells you, and you can like cock it up. You in so many different ways, and you never know that you're actually messing it up until like 20 years later. It's a
right.
wild ride, right? And why I bring up The Crown is because in season 3 was the season with the Prince of Wales, right? And that whole thing was so painful. It was so
Mm.
painful. I actually felt sorry for Charles, even though all the time when you see him, you're kind of like, this guy, there's something creepy about this guy. But you
Well,
actually felt sorry for him in that season, about the just all of it, how painfully shy he is, what a terrible situation to be in, like, and what an act to have to follow. I mean, his mom, what an act to follow.
Well, the little bits of the book that I can say I've seen and read, it actually, surprising to me of all people, it turns out that Charles is again a sympathetic character. Like I actually, even from Harry's point of view, he calls him Pa the whole way through. Never
Mm.
refers to him as Charles or anything else. He's Pa. And his grandpa is grandpa, and Granny is the queen. And Gan is the great grandmother, the queen mother. And he talks about Aunt Mabel, who was Margaret. Um, and it's
Such
amazing.
a riot.
Mom. Yeah, it's this book is, I suppose, for everybody who's been hungry to know what really goes on in the royal family. This is the first actual kind of insight that we get, because things like the crown are based on hearsay. We don't know what happened in those
Mm.
private moments. We've never been told, because they had the strict rule of we don't talk outside of school.
So,
And now for the
and
first time, you can actually hear the conversation
everything.
in their own words. Now, whether
So,
Harry remembers them accurately or not, this is the big controversy, is that he and Meghan seem to have very different recollections just of the stuff they said to Oprah, let alone what has been said within the family and all the rest of it, because there have been some very, very personal conversations that he's relayed in the book
mm.
about Charles saying something like, in the
Okay,
Gardens
I'm
of
gonna
Frog,
read it.
to both boys, he says to them, and I mean, again, you can regard this as a huge betrayal, which I did when I was first alerted to it, um, that this is really him. He's a traitor to his family and to the monarchy, to his country. But then, how else would we ever know this kind of thing? And for people who are hungry for gossip, this is absolute red meat. But he says he and William and Charles were walking through the gardens of Frogmore, had this meeting. They stopped at a patch of daffodils near the royal burial ground, where Edward VIII and Wallace Simpson are buried. And it's beautifully written, this part of the book. It's right at the beginning. And Charles turns to William and Harry while they're fighting with each other, and he says, "Boys, please don't make my last years a misery." And I mean,
Just such a parent thing, right? Such
you
a
know,
parent thing, because I think no parent wants their kids at each other's throats.
that's it. And first of all, to reveal that, I think they will consider a huge betrayal, and they have every right to, because that's the kind of conversation that should be kept in the family. But that he's letting us in is exactly what the press and the paparazzi have been after for all these years, since he was born. And he's the one giving it to them on a silver platter here. And you can't help, even a cold, angry, unfeeling person can't help thinking, while that's something else to reveal, these are humans. For Charles to have said that, you can imagine the emotion around all of this. And it's very, very compelling. I got to say, whether you
So
whether
here's a
you're
wild conspiracy. So
go
maybe
on.
the whole thing, even though this whole thing looks like a tearing down of the institution, but what it actually is the thing that probably breathes new life into it, because it's breeding so much more interest. It's very aptly coming out and giving us this human face to who Charles is, just as he ascends to the throne. I mean, the whole thing is a show. The whole thing is a show.
It is.
The whole
Yeah.
thing. So maybe this is what breathes a new life into it for another 20 years.
Well, I will. I promise you, I'll make my way through that book over this
Okay, I'm
weekend.
gonna read it.
Yeah, I'll because I got an advanced copy, and I'll have to, I'll have to. I've done maybe 80 pages, so I'll have to get the rest of it done by the weekend, and then we can talk
Oh,
about it.
okay. So I have to show you what I am reading at the moment, which is
Let's
very
have a look.
exciting.
Cool. Let's take a look. By the way, um, imagine what Harry did after that. It speaks volumes about what a little rat he is, says Congo Chris, after what he and Charles discussed. His book Spare, says
So
Ference, invalidates the crown. The new season disappointed. The live drama is so much better. So what is Robert Sobukwe, his story? How can man die better? Yes, that's Benjamin Pogred. Now you had
We
an interview, you and Muzi, but I've spoken to Benjamin Pogred, and
He was at our
he's
office last year in December.
he's
So this is a
phenomenal.
signed copy. So signed copy, also
Mate,
bragging, bragging.
oh, for me, that's amazing.
And so it has been fascinating to read at the same time as the conference, because there is an account here, first-hand account from Benjamin of being at one of the early ANC conferences in
Mhm.
Orlando, where Chief Albert Lutuli was, and Owar Tambo. The main conference actually where the PAC split off from the
Oh, yeah.
ANC. And I can tell you for free that what we saw last December with the chaos of the ANC conference, that's how they've always been. They were always chaotic. They started 2 hours late, even then. I've lost you on my sound. What have I done wrong?
Sorry, no, it's me. So it's in
Yeah.
their DNA.
It's in their DNA. It's in their DNA. It was chaotic even then. There were issues of delegates even then. There were issues of who the correct delegates are, who should be voting, who should not be voting. There were issues of what is on the agenda even then. It's in their
Yeah.
DNA.
Well, here's an interesting point being made by somebody. Tracy says something else that is going on that we need to pay attention to is that the net is closing in on Scientology and on David Musk. I think you pronounce it Muscovy. He's the
Have they found him?
yeah, it's his wife that they were trying to find. Remember, she just disappeared. He disappeared her. Remember?
This is true, Tracy. This is true.
So we'll be watching that carefully. Um, there are a couple of comments here about the whole Harry thing. The whole thing is a contradiction, says Wendy. She says Harry and Meghan want the press to leave them alone, and yet their current activities are giving the press exactly what they want. Yeah, there's a lot of hypocrisy and dirt and lies and ugliness that's coming out of all of this. And I keep thinking, like, how would I feel if this happened in my own family?
Mm.
That's I keep I think just relate it to your own family and see how you might respond. Because it's very difficult. Once you've read his words, you realize these are just ordinary people who are caught up in this incredibly complex world, this institution which is thousands of years old. But in the end, it's just ordinary people. They really are very ordinary people who are trying to get their lives in order and trying to make some sense of, you know, what we would call privilege, and I don't feel sorry for him. Don't get me wrong. I haven't got to that stage in the book yet where I feel sorry for him. But it is fascinating because I think, well, how would I respond if, my younger brother did this to our family? And I think about how my parents would feel, or how my sister would feel, or any of that stuff. And it is an interesting place to put yourself because everybody has family things. Everyone has issues in the family, right? And some of them are serious and stumbling blocks, and others are completely unimportant, but for a while they feel important. And a lot of us have
But
just come out of the
because it's
holidays where we see family a lot, and there are fights
and because
sometimes.
we're so because we can't, it's very difficult, I think, to shun family and completely walk away, and like, I some people do it, but it's very, very difficult. That's why all of these things are so emotional, right? It's so
Mhm.
much conflict, both internally as much as it is externally, because you kind of it doesn't mean you love these people any less. You may not like them, but you still, you still have an emotional connection to all of them. And so even for yourself, I think it also feels a bit like an internal conflict and betrayal. And what you think you were owed, and how you should have been treated. All of that stuff is just wow.
And of course, we're all going to be given wildly different opinions by all the people reviewing this, and we're all going to move from being sympathetic to not, to hating him to loving him, and And similarly, in our own
It's a
worlds,
great story.
it is. It's a great story because I think everybody, whether you care about Harry and Meghan or not, whether you care about the British monarchy or not, it's a family story and that we can all relate to.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know. So I watched the interview with Meghan's sister, and she has nothing really good to say about her. Well, you see, this is the other part of it because the Markles are going to write their own book soon. If not, it's already
Well,
in.
the dad is definitely going to write a book.
So we're going to hear things from their side as well. And I think that'll be interesting too. So we'll see what happens. But, to go back to Scientology for a second, Rebellious Ruth said the Scientologists are worse than the Jehovah's Witnesses because they will track you down. It is a
What do
lot.
you mean?
There's a lot that we need to figure out about this Scientology. And it's all very shady. Tell you what, there's a lot going on there that we don't know. That should
I
have.
worked with a girl at an agency who left everything, left her family, left everything, and moved into the Scientology Center in Bedfordview
Yes.
with her boyfriend. And a couple of years later, I saw her working at a health shop in Rosebank, and she'd been ousted from the church because she had apparently lied on her like intake interview or whatever it is about having
Ooh.
smoked weed. She said, you'd never used mind altering substances and she'd smoked weed before and it came out in one. What? It was a hell of a thing. It was, and it was years ago when I was much younger. So probably about 20 years ago.
Sure.
And like the whole thing, like Scientology up until that time had only been something I'd read about in like Time magazine or whatever. I didn't even,
Mhm.
and then there's that place in Braamfontein. There's a little Scientology office in Braamfontein. So that's what Scientology was. And here's this girl who was like amazing young person. She was in traffic. She was one of the traffic girls, and it was just I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe when she like resigned from her job. Like, what are you
Mm.
joining the Church of
Well,
Scientology?
I mean, like leaving the royal family is like leaving Scientology. So that we're almost on one theme this morning. And I remember, was it Leah or Leah
From one
Rimini?
cult to another.
Yeah, well, it is, right? And funny enough, Eugene Koza called this show a cult. He's like, you can check out anytime you want, but you can never leave, kind of thing. So there seems to be a theme going on this week. But I remember when that Leah Rimini, I think that's her name, left Scientology and she was doing all these interviews and she was genuinely frightened for her life because she said, once you get in, they do not tolerate you trying to leave. It's
Ye
like apostasy.
Of course, because then
And
you must talk about it, and the
they don't
secrecy
want
is
you
what
to do
keeps it all going.
that. So again, there's plenty to be revealed. This is the year of revelation so far.
Damn.
Um, and these revelations about Andre de Ruyter being poisoned, and we've got so much to talk about this morning. We really do.
Eh, 1983, Andre de Ruyter being poisoned by cyanide. So
Yeah, how's that, huh?
has anybody Googled how much cyanide you need to take to actually die? Those of you who don't watch the Crime and Investigation channel,
Yeah,
some of us, some of us, because of the podcasts we listen to
you love
and
that stuff.
Crime and Investigation,
Yeah.
listen, clearly it's a handy thing. Look now.
Mm,
Look now. If Andre de Ruyter had been paying attention to his like true crime podcasts, this
yeah.
would never have happened to him. Hmm?
Whew. Listen, we talked yesterday about driving and using your phone while you drive, which I thought I'm so stupid. And then what did I do? I picked up my phone while I was driving, and I thought if anyone who was listening to the show yesterday sees me in traffic, they're going to be like, "You hypocrite."
Why? Why would what is it that needs your attention so
No,
much
well,
that you
exactly.
cannot
This is it. We discussed this, and I felt like an idiot. So here's Barry, who was listening to the show yesterday. He has this to say to add to that conversation, and then you can admonish me like I need to be admonished. Pums. Barry says this. You just play this. Hang on a second. For some reason, this is not playing. So let me just save it and then play it off there. All right, here's Barry. Listen. Oh, for God's sake, come on.
What's
Stupid player.
happening?
I don't know. My player isn't working this morning. It's a whole thing. Wait a sec. Here we go. All right. Yeah.
Yes, good morning. This is Barry. Just to bring into context the conversation that you had this morning regarding on being on your cell phone whilst driving.
Mm-hmm.
If you're traveling at a speed of 120 kilometers per hour, if you look at that thing for 3 seconds, you've covered the distance of a rugby field. Just imagine what can happen in that time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. One rugby field for 3 seconds if you're going at 120, which is the average speed most people are going on the highway, right? Nobody's below that on the highway in South
Did you
Africa.
see
We're
the
all
video? Did you see the video? Again, it was out there in Pretoria somewhere. That's what the sub caption said on the video on social media of a hit and run of the guy that hit a car, flipped the car. So the car he hit flipped, his car spun around, and then he was still fine because his car was intact. And he tried to drive away.
Oh,
And there was someone with a dash cam. I love those people with dash cams. I wonder what they do with all of that footage afterwards. They chased him down. So, like, 3 cars chased him down and boxed him in and stopped him on the freeway because he was just running away. I don't know what happened after that. But
I'll tell you
it
what,
was on the dash cam.
people are dangerous, Pumi. I've seen a lot of these videos because people are reposting, and you don't know when it's happened or where it is sometimes. But this
This
dash
one
cam,
just say it's somewhere outside Pretoria.
well, they you see these videos and you're not even sure whether they've happened in the last 5 or 6 years because it could be earlier than that, where these amazing things happen. I saw one yesterday of a car that is obviously barreling out of control somewhere in America. It goes across 3 lanes of traffic that's stationary and gets to the other
It
side and
doesn't
it's
hit
fine.
a thing.
It doesn't hit a thing. I was like, what? You saw the same thing, right?
I saw the same thing. I also thought, wow, how lucky is that guy?
Well, that just proves to you, you never know how lucky or unlucky you're going to be, because we all know stories also of like a car's just stopped at the traffic lights and suddenly a truck loses control of its brakes and like plows into the car, and the car doesn't even have a second to react, and the driver must go, what the hell, following the
This is
rules.
this
It's
is
just
definitely
unlucky.
something this is definitely something that I aspire to when I have more money and buy another car. I definitely want those cars that have kind of the Mercedes Benz has the accident alert and they stop.
Yeah. Yes.
I I love that. I love that feature. I'm definitely getting that.
Well, I've been driving one of those, and let me tell you, sometimes if you go around a circle or something, and it picks up the
Um,
raised concrete, it's sometimes just
yes.
like obviously you have to be going at a certain low speed for that to activate. But it
Mm.
scared the hell out of me the other day. Obviously, I got too close to it, and it just suddenly like did this thing where it jerked a little bit. Not always the best. It can give you a hell of a fright, but I know what you mean, and it does help. I mean, it warns you. You get close to another car, and it's like beep 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 beep.
Hmm.
So it is
Oh,
cool.
even when another one is like heading towards you. I'm ready for that. I'm ready for that future. I'm ready for that
Well,
future.
it's coming to you whether you like it or not. We've also been talking this week quite a lot about AI, which is
Chat
going to
GPT.
for me, it's going to change everything. I spent more time yesterday playing around with this OpenAI and ChatGPT, and we discussed it at length yesterday. I'm not going to go into it anymore. In fact, we ended.
I've spent days.
Woo!
I've spent
Have you?
days on that thing. I have
You've
spent
been
days on
asking it
that thing.
questions, huh?
I've been I've been teaching it. Well, I've been teaching it how to write like me.
You've
I've
been
been
helping.
teaching it how
You're an
to
official assistant for ChatGPT. Pumi's actually employed by the ChatGPT people, whether she likes it or not, because you're taking part in the beta testing and you're feeding it information, and it's learning
absolutely.
to answer questions better because of you.
And correcting it Zulu.
Oh, you're helping it with Zulu.
Believe.
Wow.
Would I even be a good Zulu person if I wasn't helping correct it's Zulu?
Oh, here's Stevie. Stevie's giving me hell. Says, Gareth, just wanted to say thanks for the White Lotus suggestion you made on Monday. Fuck you, but thanks. It's excellent, awkwardly funny, quirky, and cringe. Love it and thanks. Any other suggestions? Well, Jimmy's already done a spoiler, but I'm on season 2 of that, and I don't have time this week, but I'll watch the rest of it this weekend probably. So I've got White Lotus season 2, Harry's book, and I've got to like get back into the swing this weekend because I don't think I said this to you, Pumi, but I mentioned on Monday. I spent the whole of last week just kind of
Vegging.
recalibrate. Yeah, I did nothing. I didn't see any of my friends. I didn't make any social arrangements whatsoever.
But you also went to like Balito. You also
Yeah, but
went
that was
to
before. That was before.
yeah,
So I
but
got it.
that's why
I
you
got it out.
needed last week to
Yeah,
recalibrate.
no, absolutely. And I'm very glad I did it. But this week I've got to start paying attention again and like dipping my
Listen,
toe.
there's lots of stuff to watch on TV.
There's
Lots
plenty,
of
huh?
stuff. Peripheral. I started watching Peripheral. I love it.
What is that?
It's also, because AI is a thing. It's about augmented reality
Ooh.
um and games and AI and transposing data transfer, transposing the experience of a gamer into a
Yeah.
3D world that's in the future, but it's just it's got all the touch points, right? It's
Wow.
fast action, fast paced, but it's also a new world view on what AI could do, where we could go. It's brilliant.
That sounds amazing. It sounds really cool. Do you want another one of these voice notes? We've got one here from
Yes.
Unri. Something to say just before we get to the burning platform. Kanthan will be joining us this morning, just in case you wondered, because I didn't have an answer for that yesterday. And then he called me yesterday while I was on my way to a meeting, and he said he's coming in. So he's going to be doing the show with Pumi and I this morning. And we'll also be joined
Yes.
by another favorite in the Free State, Leeto, who's regular. And we'll
He
also be
can
joined
tell
by
us about he can tell us the on the ground stuff that wasn't covered by any journalist because he was in the Free State, see, when the
That's
conference
right.
was.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. He was close to the action. And we've also got JJ Cornish joining us because he has plenty of interesting stories about what's going on the continent that most people wouldn't know that's been happening under our noses. So we'll find out from him too. But here's Henri.
Morning, Gareth and colleagues. Firstly, I just want to say thank you for kicking off the year with a really awesome show. I really enjoyed today. It was Wednesday's show. And then thanks to Mash, who actually followed my little thrifting business on Instagram. I really, really appreciated it. It was so cool to see him liking my things, and I was like, oh, I know this guy. But anyway, I wanted to mention on the topic of advertising, have you guys seen the latest Lacquer Slob adverts? That ad has been making waves. People actually
Oh,
watch it today. It is so funny and so good. So there are really great ads coming out,
Oh,
I
these
hate
days.
that ad.
I think you guys should check that one out.
oh, hang on. I know which one she means because someone sent it to
It
me.
is by.
Yes, correct. It's very clever. It's this family, and they've named all their kids after the different places that they've been in South
Lekker
Africa, right?
slop. That they've
Yeah, so
lekker slopped in.
my favorite is the one child is called Bella and the other one's called Bella. Bella. Because they were made in Bella. The eldest, but they start slow. The eldest kid is called George, and this family go, oh, well, why is it called George? Oh, because we conceived him in George. Then the next kid is Titi Spy, and the next kid is like what Clarence. So it's really funny. I mean, it's very, very clever. So I agree with Henri. That's a good ad. There are
It
some
is
good
clever,
ads.
but I must say, when I saw it, I thought, "Woo, the algorithms got this one wrong." Because I watch a lot of YouTube stuff, and
Mm.
and I was just like, "Ooh, this algorithms got this wrong." Serving you an Afrikaans ad. The hell's going on? Yeah.
Well, no, because you are extremely complicated, as people who've tried to nail you down to a political party or a single point of view have realized on this show. A lot of people who started listening to Phumi some years ago when she first came on the show said, "Oh, Phumi sounds like she's a this or that supporter." And they've all had to learn along the way that the algorithm is very complex for Phumi. It's not as straightforward as you think.
but I did watch it right through, but it keeps serving me that ad. I'm like, might have to. Maybe I need to go on a holiday.
Maybe it's a message from the universe. It's not just the algorithm.
I don't need to go on a holiday. I just needed to sleep, which was wonderful.
Oh, here's an interesting suggestion. The comments says, I know it's the comments
Scary
in the comments. Gareth, you should read Scary Smart by Mo Gaudat about the predicted future of AI. Scary stuff. Yeah, I think I've got to read that too. Listen, this is going to be a year, as I said, of revelations, and we can already see it happening. Musk with his Twitter revelations. I mean, these FBI
I had to
files.
go back and watch. Listen, I had to go back and watch Black Mirror. After spending a couple of days on ChatGPT, and I actually went back to just because the more specific you get, the more interesting the responses are, and the more narrow it's just. Listen, I had to go and watch Black Mirror just to keep myself in check.
That show was like a forecast of our future in no uncertain terms. And it's amazing. I mean, those episodes have aged very well because so much of what they said has come absolutely true. All right, we got lots to get to. We've also got the burning platform coming up next. Kanthan and Phumi are going to be in the studio. Leeto is going to be in the Free State. We're also going to catch up with JJ Cornish. So we have a busy hour ahead. Don't go anywhere. cliffcentral.com on this beautiful Thursday morning. Good morning. All right.
CliffCentral.com.
Yes, indeed. CliffCentral.com. It's time for the first burning platform of the year, 2023. Is it going to be a quiet, calm, a serene year where nothing happens? We should be so lucky. There's no chance of that already. A couple of days into the new year, and there's plenty of stuff that is already burning the platform. Joining us this morning, Phumi Mashiko, and I'm pleased to see
my
Kanthan
earring.
Pillay. Yeah, look at your earrings. There they are. Very nice, Phumi. Very, very nice. Kanthan, good to see you. Happy New Year. We haven't seen each other yet this year, and I'm hoping it's going to be a good year.
I think it's going to be a pretty good year. My year started terribly because I lost my dog on New Year's Day,
Oh, no.
and that was like, it's probably made it the worst New Year ever because, well, you know what it's like when we love our animals, Gareth.
When you say
we've
you
always
lost your dog,
got your back.
you mean your dog died?
Yeah, he just suddenly took ill the night before and just kind of breathed his last on New Year's Day. So it was fairly hectic. So I figured it can't possibly get worse after that. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great year.
Well, luckily for you,
Is
the
this the
ANC
year?
had more conference after that, so it did get worse. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but there was nothing there that was unexpected. We
Yeah.
knew that nothing would come out of it, and nothing came out of it. So expectations were met. Phumi?
Right.
I've been counting the days because now that Cyril has won, I've been waiting to see the resignation letter of Lindiwe Sisulu. Because remember, she had a whole interview talking about how it would be difficult for her to serve under Cyril if he.
Let's see.
Well, cabinet reshuffle is loading
Uh,
in a relatively
It
short
is.
space of time.
Well, before we
And
go any
we live in hope.
before we go further, yes,
Before
Karen.
we go further down this road, because we have someone who is actually a lot closer to the action than us. He was in the Free State, and he's someone who we always love to hear from. And Happy New Year to you too. Leeto, nice to see you. How are you?
I'm good in yourself, guys. Happy New Year to you guys too.
Hello.
You look angelic. A white shirt against a white background.
I
almost
was
like
just thinking
like-
exactly that.
like-
It's like one of those representations of God that you get in.
No, the big problem is, remember I moved to a new place. So this wall is either very dark or very light. So I don't know.
Well, it looks good. All we
Yeah.
need is the voice. All we need is the voice of Morgan Freeman, and we'll start thinking that you are God. Very good.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot to talk about, guys. But let's let Leeto start, because you were in the zone near the action, or at least you know a little bit more about it because you've been paying much more careful attention than maybe the rest of us have. So just starting the year, how's your hometown? How's your home province?
The home province is trash as usual, but I think it was good that everyone else got to see it, and I think it was very good to see the faces of the ANC members as they went through the various towns. Because remember, they didn't just go to Bloemfontein, right? They had to go to Kroonstad, where one of the leaders lived, and so as they went through these different parts, at one point, Fikile Mbalula just said, like, "Where are the roads?" He literally just said that.
Jeez.
So, and he's the minister. So it was very good to see how they sort of got to manage this disappointment of a province. But then I actually did go to Bloemfontein. I went to Bloemfontein for like 3 or 4 days to go and see what it was like. And it was truly humbling to see ANC members truly afraid that the ANC is coming to an end. I didn't think they noticed. It's like, you know, when people are in a sinking ship and sort of like merrily singing along. But they actually noticed that the ANC is going down in flames. And it was very, very scary to see them also acknowledging that, okay, something is really, really wrong. But I also think the scariest part was they would ask analysts and media members to ask senior leadership certain questions. So they're afraid to ask questions. The party's falling apart. And they expect the media to be the people who then try to hold the leadership accountable. I think that was telling, but also very, very scary, because the whole idea of a political party is that we come together, share ideas, ask each other questions, and hold each other accountable. And now that fiber is slowly falling apart, it was scary.
When you say you could see them kind of see the writing on the wall, I'm interested to know what the mood around, because in the past what you see around January 8th is you actually see the huge party that it is. They all roll into town, they're at the Cubanas or whatever the current big like hangout place is. They're stocking out the liquor stores. It's a huge party. Was this a huge party?
Not even the slightest. So there was no big ANC that you used to see. Actually, the rule was there's actually a WhatsApp text going around that shows they had instructed every senior manager in a municipality to at least take of their salary money to hire out at least one taxi to take ANC members there.
Wow.
So you go and you look at the Peter Mokaba lecture that was given by Fikile Mbalula. You would think that's a hall full of youth. It's actually a hall full of municipal employees from just different places in the Free State. There was no young people from Botshabelo actually walking towards the ANC. And I think that's the scary part, right? There were no people going, oh, the ANC is here, let's go. Everybody was just like, oh, the ANC is here, whatever, man, we don't care. And
Sure.
the hangout places with the slave queens were always half full. There was no huge party. It was like attending a funeral. It was the saddest thing you've ever seen. They couldn't even fill up the Seisa Ramabodu Stadium. The Seisa Ramabodu Stadium is not even a third as big as FNB. It's a small stadium in consideration.
Yeah,
and they couldn't even fill Seisa Ramabodu Stadium with the municipal employees that they hired to come to their event. And so the ANC now where I saw the big problem, right? I was asking the whole time, wait, where are the red shirts? Where's the SACP? And everyone said, oh no, the SACP is the new craze in town. Their membership has gone up by a factor of 1,000. And now they don't want to ruffle the feathers of the ANC to show them their bigger membership. And so they decided to just come in the ANC regalia or not at all. And so the biggest party in the tripartite alliance now is actually the SACP. But they are at pains to not shake the boat by showing the dying guy they're healthy and dancing.
That's interesting. Did you know any of this? That's fascinating. That's kind of insight that you need to actually have been there to have seen.
No, but even the general members are just saying it, right? The next move is SACP. And the big problem right now is that the SACP had posited itself as this brain trust of the ANC.
Yes.
And I think that's what kept it insulated from this death spiral we're seeing from the ANC, because they knew they had to twerk somewhere else. So they had to come, elect, but also come up with policies that would make them look good in the eyes of the other two parties in the tripartite alliance as the brain trust. And so it kept them alive, firstly, on the voting basis, but on secondly, it kept them alive as a brain trust, this idea factory. And so you can't just come and join the SACP and sing really well and we'll clap hands for you. You have to come join the SACP and bring some sort of idea with you, right? Have a policy position and know how to defend that policy position mentally. And so that's what's helped it stay stable, but also grow its base, especially with the ANC members who do believe in the ANC's vision. They now see that their refuge is the SACP, whereas in the ANC right now, the opposite is happening. They are suffering the death spiral that was suffered by SASCO, the Women's League, the Youth League. So the problem is this. Once the ANC or a big political party comes together only for elections, so throughout those 5 or 6 days, all you can do is to elect a leadership, it means that the death spiral has started inside the ANC. So it means they adopted no ideas, no policies, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
All they did is to say, either I'm Cyril or I'm not Cyril, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do that...
According to Mamuloko Dubai, they did adopt some policies, one of which is to do with changing the constitution of the Reserve Bank.
Please, we must stop listening to people like Mamloko Kubai. That's it. Did she have pom-poms out when she was saying that? Because she's just a cheerleader, right? In the ANC, she's not serious. So, but then what happens is, so what you saw with SASCO, what you saw with the Youth League, what you saw with all these people, they attach too much power to the vote. And then what then creates the fall apart factor is the fact that you voted for somebody who has no clear mandate. Because when they came together in Bloemfontein with the video cast and everything, they didn't correct. So where are the people who were sent to Nazareth to vote? If now we had enough people to vote you in, but you don't have enough people to just raise their hands and adopt things that you talked about in Nazareth. See, that's the big part. And so that's the scary part, to show you that the ANC is now in its final descent. There's no coming back from this. Even Gwede acknowledged. Gwede was like, oh no, all we need is Cyril, because if we lose Cyril now, we lose about 15% of our voters and we're going to lose our majority. So Gwede was there just like, I'm just trying to eat. The last crumbs here, I'm collecting and I'm leaving.
So any comments on this? Because I do want to bring JJ in. He's got some interesting stuff that we really wouldn't get from anywhere else, just like with Leeto, we wouldn't get from anywhere else. But any comments on this before we move to the other stuff? And stick around, Leeto.
Yeah, Gareth, I think we need to shift our perspective on this entire ANC thing. And everything that Leeto said so far has been absolutely spot on in terms of what's been happening within the ANC. But we actually need to pull back a bit and just take a look at what's happening overall. And the interesting thing for me that's emerged basically since December and now going forward to 111 or whatever it was that they've called it, we need to recognize that for the first time, we have a president of the country and of the African National Congress who is actually divorced from all of the factions within the African National Congress. So just take a view that right now, Cyril is sitting in a position where he's accountable to no one within his party. Why is that? It's because he's got access to the funding to actually keep everyone in check. He's got the media on his side as well. And right now, you've got a sitting president of the country taking the National Prosecuting Authority to court to prevent the NPA from proceeding with charges against him. So this guy is pretty much unassailable right now in terms of where he is sitting. Just consider all of the stuff that's currently not working. Okay, we've got power blackouts at a worse level than it ever was during the Zuma time. We have violence in the streets that's at a higher level. By every single measure, we were better off under Zuma in terms of the economy than we are currently under Cyril. Do you hear even so much as a peep from the mainstream media talking about any of these things? No. Because this guy is... So really the view that we need to be taking right now is that the ANC's role in this is kind of irrelevant. And in the absence of a coherent opposition that's actually able to speak a narrative that's going to pull people on board, we're pretty much going to be stuck with this in 2024 as well. And I think that, so the time has now come. We need to step back from the ANC's internal machinations, which no longer matter, is my point. We are going to see a cabinet reshuffle coming up very soon. I'm pretty sure that Mabuza will be recalled and Paul is now going to become deputy president of the country. We've already seen a massive consolidation of power in the hands of Gwede. And I've got to tell you, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. So we're actually seeing a shift back to a lot of stuff that happened during the... I'll get to that in a second, Phumi. But we're seeing a shift back to a lot of things that were actually taken apart post the Mbeki era. So public enterprises is effectively being disbanded because you've got responsibility for Eskom now moving to minerals and energy. You're now seeing a scenario where Transnet gets moved back into the Department of Transport. So you're seeing a dismembering of the power structures that existed under public enterprises. SAA had already been taken out a while back. Gwede has been right in terms of the fact that we need to be making use of our coal resources, because in order for us to kickstart economic growth right now, we absolutely need to have energy.
Yes.
And we spoke about this this last year. So there are all of these things that are going to be happening, but they are divorced from any democratic process. So it's essentially Cyril dictating a course of events that's going to be going forward. I don't see right now any narrative that is being spoken on the part of the opposition that's going to see a coming together. And, interestingly enough, you now see Rob Hersov and Gwede Mantashe singing from the same hymn sheet. So park that for a second and just consider what's actually going on behind the scenes. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about the ANC, Phumi. You might have a different take around what's going on. But, right now, I just wish that the DA would get their act together, stop talking about stuff that's actually irrelevant, and actually focus on delivery and focus on getting people to unite around that stuff. Frankly, they should not be talking about what's going on in Zimbabwe. They should not be talking about what's going on in Ukraine. They should not be worried about the fact that we have Russian vessels that are pitching up at Simonstown.
Yeah.
Really?
Well,
because people don't care.
Well, we are interested in what's going on there. And luckily for us, we've got JJ Cornish here to help us figure that out. And he's going to give us a brief intro to 2023. JJ, it's good to see you. Happy New Year to you too, sir. And you have some clangers to drop on us before we get too comfortable with the new year, right?
Well, bonne to all of you, and good to see that
and bonjour, Jean-Jacques.
Bonjour, and good to have such an insight into our ruling party, accountable to the ruling party and not to the people. And that's one of the things. Very, very depressing to hear, but very well put.
So, JJ, what is the story that we see about Zimbabwe's record wheat harvest? Is this going to help us? What's this all about?
Well, Zimbabwe, the cliche for aging journalists like myself was Zimbabwe, once the bread basket of the region, now the basket case of the continent. Well, here we have, they've turned it on their heads. And they did have rain this year, or some good rains this year, which they hadn't had the previous year, but essentially good farming. And they have a 50-year record wheat harvest. That's 375,000 tons. They're completely self-sufficient in wheat. And when you see Ukraine and Russia unable really to export the kind of numbers that are required because of the invasion by Russia, it's a very, very important time to have it. The thing about Zimbabwe, of course, is always hassles. How are they paying the farmers? They're not doing that properly and on time. They also have a much bigger corn harvest, maize, but that's, of course, a staple. It's still not enough. They're still having to import some maize. But, most of the maize from South Africa was going to Zimbabwe, some less of it now. And there was wheat being imported to Zimbabwe. That's not going. So this is a good news story out of Zimbabwe, no doubt about it. The thing is, of course, Zimbabwe being Zimbabwe, some Zimbabweans still need food aid, just simply to survive. But being self-sufficient in wheat at this very important time, great news for Zimbabwe.
Well, that is great news. Just giving us a brief overview, what are the other big things that we need to be looking at in Africa this year? Because, often and mostly when Kanthan is on, and our audience is grateful for this, when Kanthan's on, we tend to sort of look a little further afield. But we very seldom pay as much attention as we perhaps should to what's actually happening just north of us in this very, very complex continent of ours. And of course, Africa itself is, divided. What did Julius Caesar say when he went into Gaul? Gallia est divisi divi in partes tres, which means like it's divided into three. And Africa is divided into way more parts than three. So there's always stuff going on. What are you going to be looking at this year?
Well, I mean, the economy, the African economy always grew faster than those around the world. That's not the case. the World Health Organization, World Monetary Organization is saying today they're one step away, some of the countries one step away from another big shock before they go and are unable to pay their debts. During the easy money years, they were borrowing like mad. Now they're having to repay. So that's a big thing. The growth has been downgraded from 2 to about, well, just less than 1%. So there's economic tough times coming, very, very tough times coming, and not the least for us, but countries like Nigeria and others. So it's the economic growth problem that we're looking at this year that's going to hit us. There are small minor stories coming in. The Somaliland, the country I speak about a great deal, the break-off from Somalia, post-colonial break-off, which African countries don't seem to realize or haven't yet realized. They should be recognizing it's a real democracy. They've actually now, Gareth, found oil there. Now, some people's eyes roll, the black curse. Others say fantastic. I wonder what that's going to mean. Does that mean countries that didn't recognize it suddenly are going to? They were digging a water well, and this black liquid poured out is rather like something out of Hollywood, and it's oil. So they found it in this Marodi J region, and we don't know what's going to. They've given to Britain, a British company, the right to explore further and to exploit some of it. So it's very interesting to see. Britain is the country, I've been there many, many times, and they've always had British government servants there. Britain hasn't recognized it, but they have been very supportive. So they'll get to benefit from that to some extent. But we see other things like the Rwanda DRC situation is getting worse and worse, and that is very bad for the country at the heart of our continent, the DRC. Paul Kagame now behaving like the old National Party, like the old apartheid bosses, talking in Kinyarwanda to his people, suddenly breaks into English, reminiscent of the times I can remember when John Foster said, "We have done away with our 90-day detention with our trial facility. And we have done that because we are bringing in 180 days detention without trial." And there was laughter around the house. Well, here we have Paul Kagame saying, we're not going to accept Congolese refugees anymore. Now, Congolese refugees constitute about 60% of those in Rwanda. He says, they are not my problem. Well, I suppose his problem are the refugees that the Brits are going to foist on Rwanda, because that comes with a healthy £120 million payment. Ka-ching, this suddenly becomes my problem. But well, it's so cynical on his part, and he's saying that he might have to repatriate some of the Congolese refugees. Well, that's simply because they're being told by Britain, by the EU, by the African Union, by the United Nations, stop supporting the Tutsi rebels, the M23 rebels inside the Congo. And that's really seriously pissed him off, and that's why he's taken this move. But, it's... I come back to the story that it will be the economy I'm looking at, and that Africa's being told, stop relying on foreign purchases, transform your economy to look more to agriculture, as Zimbabwe has done, and industrialization, and look to yourselves, and that's the only way you're going to grow out of this problem.
Well, let me ask
other story.
Gareth, I just want to climb in for a second. Jean-Jacques, you were talking about Rwanda, and something else, and you're quite right in terms of their interference in the Eastern DRC and the support for the rebels out there. But I just wanted to ask whether you had any info on what's going on in terms of Mozambique, because Rwanda has got troops up there. We've got troops up there, effectively fighting the jihadists in the northeastern corner of Mozambique. I saw a video that was doing the rounds. Yeah, very disturbing video of what's going on there? Just talk to that
And
very
the
quickly.
SANDF actually did put out a statement.
Yes.
saying
Well, they said that
will
they're
be-
investigating
They
it.
will be investigating what
Yes.
is the video and its origins and what exactly is happening over there. But also essentially saying we're actually not in charge. It's the Mozambican military.
Sure, but at the same
that
time,
tells our guys what to do
if
over
our
there.
troops in uniform are throwing bodies onto
Open fires.
open fires, like what's going on there?
Well, I haven't seen our troops doing that. The thing about it is when you have a peacekeeping operation like you do up in Cabinda, things get very ugly and get very ugly very quickly. I haven't seen our troops being responsible. And I know that the Mozambicans have overreacted massively. This is an absolutely shocking video. It goes back to, the very worst we've seen in Africa. Rwanda's there, and for one moment it appeared like they were sort of holding the ring, but I don't know how long they're going to last there now. In the light of this, Rwanda did that because they wanted to ingratiate themselves certainly with the European powers, because EU is supposed to be training peacekeepers up there. I haven't seen the effect of that, unless, if you want to make a cynical remark about the EU teaching them barbecue techniques or something. But the fact is, very, very ugly atrocities actually filmed. And that's another thing, is you can't escape these things today with the technology we have. Anything you do like that will be filmed and will get out. So I wait to get an assurance from the SANDF that they're not personally responsible, but it's very, very bad what we've seen.
One of the other things, talking about looking at the economies and what Africa does with this coming year, as we have a looming global recession, they tell us, is the election race in Nigeria, also one of the most sophisticated economies on the continent. What's your take on that heating up race?
Well, it's one of 24 elections we have this year. 10 of them would be presidential elections, probably the most important of them. Nigeria has not disappointed us with the elections that they've held. They've had actually changes of party governments, and so we have every hope that they're going to do this properly. But they have the biggest task on the continent. The biggest election I've observed is in the DRC, which was the most expensive that the United Nations has ever sponsored. But so I have every faith in the Nigerians actually having proper elections. But they do have, of course, up in the northeast, the Boko Haram area, and they won't be able to poll in every one of the areas. But I do have faith that they will be able to have a proper election. Who's going to come through? I don't know. I hate making predictions beforehand, because all I have left is my credibility. So I hate people to point out to me later, well, you said.
AJ,
but,
I'm going to, I'll let you go in a second, because we've got so much to squeeze in this morning that I don't want to run out of runway for Kanthan and Leeto and Phumi. But I do want to say that I'm interviewing a guy called LJ Fenter, who's a tremendous writer. You must be very aware of him, and he's got a bit of an exclusive for us on what's happening in the Central African Republic, which he'll be telling me about later. It has to do with the Russians, and it is not a story that we can ignore. So I'll be sure to let you know once that's ready, and we'd love to hear your comments on that too.
Okay, the thing about the Russians is that we had in the Security Council, or in consultations, the United States turning on Russia, saying you're interfering in Africa with these mercenaries, and they have not brought peace in Burkina Faso or stopped the jihadis in that country, and certainly not in Mali. So the Russian influence is growing, but the effectiveness and what the countries have sacrificed in order to get the Russians in there hasn't paid off. So they're losing peacekeepers from Germany, from the European Union, from France particularly. We had the French deputy foreign minister in Burkina Faso, where they've just tried to kick the ambassador out, saying we're not interfering, we're wanting to help. but the Burkinabe are saying, get out of here. And they've actually attacked French diplomatic buildings. So
Wow.
they've turned it all upside down, but there hasn't been the effect that the African countries wanted. I'd be very interested to hear what's happening in Central African Republic. So what time is that coming on? I'm going to have to pick it up.
It's going to be a sort of long form. I'm recording it. He's in the UK at the moment, but we're going to be putting that together this afternoon, and then it'll probably be ready early next week. I'll let you know once it's done.
Well, tell him to wear his thermal underwear. Huh?
Yeah, it's not exactly warm. Thank you, JJ. Great to catch up with you, and thank you for your participation this morning.
All the best to all of you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so there's no shortage of stuff going on here as well. Kanthan, we had an email. I know it was a voice note that someone said. Pillay sent it to us yesterday, and I tried to give the brief on Kevin McCarthy and the Republican Party and what's going on there. But I mean, U.S. politics, the forecast for 2023. I mean, have we got anything to look forward to there? Because what do we even make of the ongoing Russian-Ukraine conflict? To not mention the story that seems to still be at the top of most newspapers' priority lists.
Well, let's just get Kevin McCarthy out of the way first. You might remember the last show of last year when we touched on U.S. politics. Mm-hmm. I said at the time, the real battle that's going down here is not between the U.S., between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's between the Trump Republicans and what Trump refers to as rhinos, Republicans in name only. And the entire conflict, the reason why the election of Kevin McCarthy took as long as it did is because of the internal wrangling that was going on within the Republicans in terms of who gets to do what. Now, there's a couple of things that the Democrats did over the past term that they were in control under Pelosi. The one is that they didn't allow any debate to be introduced from the floor. They didn't allow any legislation to be introduced from the floor. So they effectively stopped the Parliament of the United States of America, which is what the House is, from actually doing their job. The second thing is that they spent a lot of time investigating Trump at various levels and didn't allow anything to be tabled on other matters of national importance. And remember, at the same time, there was all of that debate around Roe versus Wade ahead of the Supreme Court. There were private members across both sides who wanted to codify Roe versus Wade, which means that it would have pulled the rug out from under the Supreme Court. And essentially, you had the Democrats not wanting that stuff to be done. All of the arguments that have been taking place behind the scene right now has been effectively to give all of the Trump Republicans control of a couple of processes. So they say to Kevin McCarthy, you're going to be speaker, all right? You're effectively third in line for the presidency. But what we want is we're going to actually be driving the select committees. We are going to be instituting inquiries of our own. So one of the things that they've immediately tabled is they want Janet Yellen to now start investigating all funds that have been transferred in and out of the country by Hunter Biden and by Joe Biden's brother. In other words, they're launching a major investigation into the financial dealings of Joe Biden's immediate family. And it's very possible that shortly before we get to the next elections, you're going to have them deciding to actually try to impeach Biden. And so everything that's behind the scenes was on the basis of the Trump Republicans wanting to get control of those processes. And so it obviously took a lot of argument behind the scenes. Remember that Kevin McCarthy differs from Trump on a number of platforms. I mean, the guy literally has a Ukrainian flag on his profile. Whereas Trump is always of the view that the U.S. shouldn't be fighting in Ukraine. They need to get the hell out of there. And but that's the McCarthy story. He'll sit there quietly now because he got what he wanted, which is the position, and the Trump Republicans are going to be ascended behind the scene.
We've got such a list of points to get to. Pums, you've got a couple of things you want to talk about this morning too. And I know Leeto wants to talk about, are we using this one resource that we don't seem to be able to put to good use, and that is our young population advantageously. We'll get to that in a second. But what do you make of, first of all, JJ's summation of some of the stories here on this continent, but also what Kanthan's just said about US politics?
You know what has been fascinating to watch with the Kevin McCarthy debates is very similar to what we've been watching here with the ANC, right? All of this internal wrangling and using all of this resource of the Senate, of the Parliament, to fight personal battles, right? So what is not being talked about in all of that, what's not being talked about, I think that actually very fundamentally affect the people, the economy, the delivery, so this is, and it's been, for me, just watching, even as all of the news agency are talking about how, for the first time in 150 years, we've had like 20, how many did they eventually end up? How many rounds of counting did they, voting did they eventually get to? And all because of personal politics around Hunter Biden, Russia, and the money. And
no, but
Phumi,
you're doing a disservice by saying it's personal, because remember that what they are trying to do, and I'm talking now very specifically in terms of the Trump Republicans, is they're actually trying to get to a situation where the House is once again effective, where you are going to be able to have legislation that gets put forward from the floor without necessarily having to wait for Nancy Pelosi's stamp of approval, which was the thing for the longest time. Our parliament right now in this country is dysfunctional at exactly the same level. You can't have a situation where, unless you have the approval of the speaker, and then the speaker is not giving approval unless the ANC has agreed on it behind the scenes, where parliament is actually able to function. So I don't think it's not actually personal. It is all about the ability to make use of the House quite effectively. One of the, it was a representative from Oklahoma who yesterday was tabling the rules under which the House is going to be operating going forward. And he was pointing out in particular the passing of that 1.7 trillion bill in the dying days. Yes,
and the
omnibus bill.
The fact that one of these things, Phumi, I mean, I've got to agree with Kanthan here. One of the things is that people actually have to read. They need time to be able to read these bills that are being passed, because
4,700 pages in that case.
Yeah, and it was just put through, and Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats just pushed it through in the dying days of their majority. It's that and all these other concessions which they gained. One of them being that the IRS isn't going to get a huge tranche of funding, which frankly will just make the ordinary American more of a victim of the revenue service than anything else. And all of this stuff has now been put to a stop thanks to what seems to be a very fragile but nonetheless important maneuver by these conservative Republicans who really pushed Kevin McCarthy into a corner. This is important politics. This is what parliaments are for, is the negotiation, a to and fro. So while it's embarrassing to some, I think many people are looking at this and saying, well, that's what legislatures are meant to be doing.
But then it's a reach to then say, I'm sorry, Phumi, but I think it's a reach to then say, by virtue of doing that, you're going to make the processes easier, right? Just then say it's a self-serving purpose, right? Because that's what it then goes to the core of politics. It's about the self and the ego and the hubris of the individual, and then the hubris of the collective, right? So if you're then going to stop one bill from this side to that side, because remember, a hallmark of the American political system is to hide things in largely worded papers. That's yes. Part of their system, is to hide little nuggets
behind the scenes.
And so at the end of the day, if you were trying to make the American system more effective, this maneuver is not it. It's going to make the Republicans look good, yes. It's going to make them look like they're working, yes. It's a cosmetic sort of application of what is supposed to be a working Senate. And so we must be truthful about it. A working study doesn't look like what's happening now, or even what's going to happen in the next 6 months. A working Senate does not look like that. So we must always go back to the hubris of the individual. If I now tell you I'm going into politics, know that I've now considered myself the master of Velcom, and I think I know everything about this place, and I'm going to make everyone better. That's the first part. And then the collective, me and my friends who believe like me, I am going to be the savior of Velcom. And so you must always take it to that basis first before you think it's about to work for the people.
And the thing about it for me, so there are two things about it for me. One is the theatrics of it is what creates for the public, right? Is I'm actually not going to be any more interested in all of this. And this is where the opportunity to hide things comes from. And on both sides. So Nancy was able to create a system which worked for her way of pushing things through, because that's what they want to do. That's what the Republicans want to do. That's what the Democrats want to do. And what works for Nancy is having to be able to, and hence the vote counter, right, is to whip the votes behind the scenes so that by the time they get into that voting stance, she knows exactly who's voting for what, because she's worked them.
Phumi,
right?
let's go back to what we said last year. And I'm telling you once again, this is not about business as usual politics along those lines. This is a fight for the soul of America that is happening right now. The battle between the Trump Republicans and the rhinos is the most crucial thing that's happening. And a very likely outcome is going to be that you actually have a split in the Republican Party that actually happens on the eve of the elections for the next presidential elections. And that will be the best thing that could actually happen to the U.S. In exactly the same way as in the same way that I said that the best thing that could happen in our country is for a split to happen within the ANC. And but I see that as a distant dream at the moment. Gareth, you have had a thought on that, I can see.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to throw more thought into US politics for the moment, because I think we've yet to see whether this House is effective at all. But I do think that your quite dire prediction of the Republican Party splitting is a really interesting one. I think that there's an ideological divide growing in America over everything. Everything's so political, right? Everyone I know in America, everything from art to sport to Prince Harry and Meghan, for God's sake, everything's political now. And you immediately know that you are friends or enemies with someone depending on whether or not you wear a mask, depending on whether or not you support pro-life or pro-choice arguments. And all of this has now been conflated into this very complicated and hugely sensitive political system where Americans are actually looking at each other as being their prime source of ire. They're not looking at the Ukraine and Russia. Most Americans couldn't care less about Ukraine and Russia. They are actually looking for the enemy within. And Republicans see Democrats as enemies. Democrats see Republicans as enemies, and vice versa. And it's not going to get better for a while, with people like Trump stoking the fires on one side and many of the Democrats doing the same on the other side. It's getting worse. It's making America a very uncomfortable place for most people to just try and get along, as Jack Nicholson said in Mars Attacks. So I don't want to spend too much more time on that if you guys don't mind. We've only got a few minutes, and Leeto's got some interesting observations, which I think will give us pause for thought before we head into the new year. And I think, Leeto, we've got this young population of people who are desperate and hungry and are hustling and have to. And, just because so many young people in this country are unemployed doesn't mean they're sitting on their hands, right?
No, it doesn't. They're hustling every day. They're trying to make a way for themselves. But for the most part, the systems around them aren't allowing them to maximize that. And if you look at all the other countries around us, look at the BRICS countries, for instance. If you look at China, one of its powers that it was able to leverage is population. And that population dynamic is turning to trash, right? Because of that one child policy that failed so dismally. And so if we are then going to be the youngest continent on the planet, how are we using that in our future? So how are we building the blocks for what our young people could be tomorrow? And it doesn't seem like any of our leadership is doing that. Like, not even just in South Africa, all across Africa. They don't know what to do with these young people. If you talk about Nigeria, for instance, you're talking about the election. Like in Nigeria, only like less than 10% of the population actually votes for the political leadership. And so if you think about that, you're like, wait, where's everyone else? You then get to consider that everyone else is actually young people, and they're saying, well, we don't really care about that system. It doesn't work for us. And so the fact that we're not thinking about these young people is what is scary to me, is that they are a commodity that we're not using to its maximum, right? Even if we use them as like a hard work labor, let's use them as part of the potential to solve some of our problems. Let's just like thrust all of them into the police force, into the SANDF. Let's use them as something, but we're not using them as something. You get to, so I actually went to Botshabelo, which is a town smaller than Valcom, and you get there and almost, excuse me, almost all the youth doesn't work. No one works. And so you get there and you're like, wait, what is this town going to become in 10 years? If nobody's working, that means nobody in that town has a bank account. It means nobody in that town is eligible for anything that the system provides as a comfort. So you're not even going to get credit. You're not. So they're working outside of the system. And if there are towns like that littered all across the Free State, which is essentially a failed province, right? The rot in South Africa and the failure to govern is going to start from the Free State and sort of radiate outward. And so what I'm seeing here, I know for a fact I'm going to start to see in the rest of South Africa in 6-7 months or a year, 2 years. So whatever is happening in the Free State now, the huge potholes are starting to manifest in Johannesburg. The lack of collection of waste, it started here. That's a fashion that started here too. When you're cutting down and you're stealing the money, steal the money from the garbage trucks first. And so that sort of breakdown in systems and how they work seems to be permeating, and it's now radiating outside of the Free State into places like Lesotho. And I'm very, very scared about our future in those terms.
So, I mean, your words are ringing in my ears, and I can only think of what the only person who was on our show last year who had any solution to this question was Muzi Kuzwayo, who in his book South Africa's Promise has basically come up with a plan to get young people to do essentially what would be a year of paid, but not paid extravagantly, community service effectively, and a chance for them to contribute to the country. It's like taking Mandela Day and stretching it over a year. And I think that's probably one of the best ideas I've heard. I haven't heard any other ideas that come even close to addressing this problem. I mean, Kanthan, you've got some, no doubt, and Phumi, you've got a couple too.
Yeah, the thing that that Muzi touched upon was actually something that went back to the Mandela era. And remember that originally what was supposed to be happening was you were supposed to have this effective youth subsidy in terms of getting them into the workplace. And most of us have forgotten the reason why the project was killed, but it was killed because of COSATU. Because COSATU then saw it as a threat to their unionized base. Because you see, if you effectively have subsidized workers being brought in, then that allows you to slowly start whittling away at the relatively underworked and overpaid COSATU members that exist primarily in the public service. And so that's the reason why that idea died away. So, Leeto, there's no shortage of good ideas, but in the absence of will on the part of the state to actually implement it, we're not going to be able to get anywhere with it.
Oh, guys, the president has got a whole Yes for Youth program. Why are you ignoring that? Why are you ignoring the presidential... Listen, you are ignoring the presidential job summit. You are ignoring the presidential... Like, come on, guys. There are many commissions out here that the president... It's a good ideas that the president has put out there, and you people just choose to ignore it. The only people that really notice the good work that the president is doing is mainstream media. Because you guys just willfully want to look away from this. I mean,
Is the
I
is
think
the
that
NYDA still a thing, by the way? Is anybody
board,
aware?
Yes,
they've got a new board and
NYDA.
everything. They've got a new board and everything. They've a whole new set of people who are there, who are
And
all
new
earning
offices in
great.
Johannesburg. Brand new offices in Johannesburg.
You people are you just willfully looking away from the good work that is being done. There's a good story to
No.
be
So
told.
here's the other
There's a good story to
thing.
be told, and you people are not telling the story.
For me, you've reached your
The
quota.
youth-
For me, your quota for sarcasm in one show, and one, that's enough. Please, you're gonna kill us all.
The Youth Employment Service, by the way, I signed up for it, signed up all my friends for it, right? None of us, and the young people in my neighborhood, I was like, okay, we're going to use my data. It's fine. I'm going to pay for it. Let's go.
Right.
Signed everyone up. Nobody has gotten an SMS ever since we did that. SMS to say, oh no, we recognize you signed up. Did not we're getting you a job. They didn't say we see you signed up for the program. So yes, Youth Employment Service. Yes. Thank you, Phumi.
That's outrageous. I mean, they're
Look,
getting a
There's
lot
a
of money.
year ahead. I'm like Kanthan. I'm very much looking forward to a cabinet reshuffle. I'll be very pleased to see it happen. I don't know. I mean, I know the president penned it in his letter saying that it is imminent, this cabinet reshuffle, but I wait with bated breath. I also wait this
By
year.
the-
Another thing the president has promised us is that he will be dealing with urgency with the whole lot of the issues, the power issues that we are facing. He'll be dealing with those. That in this term of his presidency, issues are going to be dealt with a whole lot more urgency. And I, for one, look forward to this year of seeing lots of things happening.
Also, thank you, Gareth, for having Kanthan here. Kanthan, me and you are gonna test the might of the NYTA. We're gonna come up with a nice business plan and see which ANC member gets it and implement it. We're gonna hand in a proposal to NYTA and see whether or not they give us the funds or they give it off to the
Done
next
deal.
guy.
Let's do that.
I have the idea. This is a great project for the Burning Platform for 2023.
Yes.
Guys, I said we've reached our quota for sarcasm. We've got to try to find.
It's not sarcastic. Although I did start the show today, so this is what my outside of my sarcasm quota. I did start the show this morning talking about how I absolutely refuse to let them steal my joy. And the one thing, if anybody remembers any one thing for the rest of this year with the Burning Platform, is that we have to be absolutely intentional, all of us, about not sitting back and becoming complacent. This is important. Report the potholes, report the broken street lights, be there, right? Be there and be active. Don't sit back and go, what can I do? Right? This is where you actually have to stand up. This is still our country, and it is important for all of us to participate in making sure that we don't let them steal our joy and we don't let them steal our voice, because this is what it is. That don't let them steal the voice. So remain angry. Remain angry. That's
don't
what's
let
good.
the bastards get you down.
Get you down.
Gareth, someone was asking a question in the comments in terms of why we're not manufacturing our own solar panels in this country. A couple of the things I just want to touch on that. The one is that we actually had patents that were developed at WITS that are really best in the world in terms of efficiency around solar panels. The reason why we're not able to actually end up manufacturing those out here is basically because, again, we lack the will to actually fund the establishing of enough of an industrial base to actually produce those panels. And of course, we need electricity to actually run those factories, which is not going to happen in a short space of time. So as usual, the technology will end up getting sold off to the Chinese, exactly like our pebble bed modular reactors did. Yes, and they'll sell it back to us in manufactured form, which is unfortunate, but yes, that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. And finally from me, Gareth, I think Also, this is the last time you guys see me with dreadlocks. I'm gonna cut them off. So
Are they going?
Yes, they're going. They're going. It's been almost 15 years, so they
Oh
have to
wow.
go.
It's time for a change.
Yes, but also like don't just like Phumi and Kanthan. I mean, we're always happy as South Africans, but also we're also good in our discomfort. So don't lend yourself to comfort as a South African because you are individually comfortable. South Africans are always best when we huddle together and work towards something. Whenever we are shoulder to shoulder as South Africans, we are a scary force. So from here on outward, remember that Cyril Ramaphosa only has 18 months left. 18 months is nothing. 2024, get you, your family members, everyone out there voting. Vote for anyone else except these damn bastards. Because at the end of the day, we have to change this country. We have to find a new configuration of how we become better. And it's going to take work. It's not going to, we're not going to find a silver bullet in the DA or EFF or Freedom Front Plus. It's going to be a combination of those, just like I'm saying, that us together are the solution. They're not going to be the solution by themselves just because they have that hubris and they think they're better than the rest of us. So keep going, keep grinding, make a change in your circle. We're going to become better. We're going to change this thing.
I like it. A little inspiration for the end here. I've just got to say that what Leeto just said about us standing shoulder to shoulder and not being individually comfortable and thinking that will push us through. I saw some Americans who I've known for a while, and they were out here just the other day, and they said to me, give us in a short précis kind of what the story of South Africa politically at the moment is. And instead of going into the party breakdown, I thought, no, let me look at this from the point of view of the people of South Africa. And the one thing that, if nothing else good has come out of the last few years, it is that we are slowly leaving behind the very distinct lines and divisions that have so long been an issue for us. Because if black, white, old, young, rich, poor South Africans have one thing in common, it's that they hate the government. And I think that's true across the board. All South Africans finally united under one banner. We've always wondered, what is it? Is it Braai Day? Do we have, is it sport? What do we care about the most? And the thing we all care about the most is that we've been abused long enough. And everyone feels the same way about that, whether they are from this side, that age, this age, that race, this race. We're all starting to feel the same about that. And that is a very powerful thing if you can harness it and we can all bring about change. And we've got to do it, like Phumi said at the beginning of her non-sarcastic comments just a moment ago. I like it. All right, everybody. Listen, this is a great way to start the year. I'm very pumped up after this burning platform. I hope everybody else is too. I see our own Lebang Khosana says power. So I think that's it. That's exactly where we're getting. First, let's get electricity power, and then let's restore the power dynamics in society to something where we can approximate a progression in the right direction. Thanks, everybody. Nice to see you all. Thank you, Leeto. Great to catch up with you, Kanthan, Phumi. We'll see you all very, very soon. That is the burning platform, everybody. Have a great